Hello, archivists and anteaters. My name is TBSkyne, and back in 2014, Riot Games deleted League of Legends. Quite literally, they did this. For the first several years of League of Legends, the video game, the League was a physical place in the story, a grand combat arena where champions from all over the world fought for honor, glory, and great rewards, voluntarily surrendering to the control of powerful mages called summoners. The summoners, of course, were us, the players, and the League of Legends was the in-universe narrative justification for why a busty pirate maid would be on a team with an Egyptian god, an angel, a cosmic horror, and a scarecrow. It was a thin narrative justification for slamming together a bunch of fantasy trope characters like action figures. League of Legends was, essentially, the MOBA fantasy equivalent of a game of Super Smash Bros. But that format had restrictions. It would be difficult, for example, to create a character like Aurelion Sol in League of Legends back then, when you have to somehow justify in lore why a planet-sized star dragon with the power to create galaxies, first of all, bothers to fight in the League of Legends, and more importantly, how the hell he could ever possibly lose. So, in 2014, Riot retconned the universe. The League of Legends was unmade, and the battle arena of Summoner's Rift became definitively non-canon. And this was a big overhaul. The game had something like 120 champions already at the time, and many of their stories were intimately and deeply connected to the League of Legends fighting tournament. It would all have to be rewritten, and Riot promised to be dedicated and relentless in their efforts to update all of the affected champions with new, improved, and canonical stories. It has now been 10 years since that fateful day in 2014, so maybe we should check in with them a decade later to see how it's all turned out. Let's have a look through here. Let me see. Right. Okay. So Corki, Shaco, Cho'Gath, Kog'Maw, Rumble, Twitch, Heimerdinger, Talon, and Teemo still don't have full character biographies, and the biographies they do have contain information which is straight up wrong, okay? Twitch's entire character biography can fit into 2 tweets. Heimerdinger's biography barely fits into 3 tweets. Zillion still doesn't have a single short story to his name, and neither does Nivea, Alistar, or T. Okay, yeah, okay. So clearly, they haven't quite finished tidying things up yet. And they also haven't done a great job of keeping up with new changes. Vayne was massively changed, and for the better, after the 2021 Sentinels of Light event, but 3 years after that, her basic biography still has not been updated. Dozens of characters have not received any kind of updated story content for, well, years, and quite a large number have never received meaningful story updates since the day that they were released into the game. And the conclusion that one must draw, looking at history, is that despite 15 years of mind-bogglingly profitable success, Riot has never in its history managed to develop the institutional capacity to either execute a big story retcon, or even to maintain and keep the stories of their characters properly updated and alive. Their priority is, and has always been, releasing more and more new characters rather than maintaining and exploring their old characters, which is why we now have 167 champions, the vast majority of whom never receive any kind of meaningful story content. One of the consequences of that failure is that getting into League of Legends lore, even if you want to, is way harder than it needs to be. Whether any given short story that you can read, which is currently published about a champion, is canon or not is basically a roll of the dice. Whether any character that you like will ever receive meaningful story content is utterly unknowable, and most importantly, there is nowhere to go if you want to keep up with the League of Legends narrative. Years ago now, Riot made the Universe website, which was meant to be a central repository for all the lore and narrative of its game. Unfortunately, that website sucks ass. Everything on the site is dumped into an undifferentiated, unconnected vertical pile. You can't meaningfully filter its content, you can't search for individual stories or comics by title, you can't even filter by writer, which is very scummy, and content on individual champion pages is neither chronological nor organized by storyline. Alternate universe content like KDA and Star Guardians is presented alongside main canon materials with no real substantial differentiation, and if you are a new reader, it is functionally impossible to figure out where the hell to start with any of this. And good luck, by the way, trying to use the Universe official lore website to find out about the 2 novels and the Realms of Runeterra lore book that Riot went to the bother and expense of physically publishing. And if you want to experience the Sentinels of Light lore event, the big canon lore event that introduced Viego and Gwen and completely changed Vayne's entire character, well, good luck finding them on Universe. Good luck finding the Star Guardians visual novel. Good luck finding Spirit Blossom. Those things are not archived, and Riot doesn't really seem to give a shit if you have access to them. Search for them on YouTube, I guess. The company that made these things can't be bothered to archive them properly. I know for a fact that many people credit my videos about League lore with not only getting them into League of Legends lore, but helping them realize that there was League of Legends lore to get into in the first place, and every lore-focused content creator I know will tell you that their audiences tell them the same thing. Riot is catastrophically, ludicrously terrible at publicizing and promoting their own IP universe. They do not and have never had any kind of effective strategy for bringing in new fans or readers or making the narrative universe accessible to them. But don't worry, Riot has decided that the way to solve all of those problems is to retcon the universe so that Arcane can be canon. And okay, it seems like a good thought on the surface, right? Arcane is popular, lots of people got interested because of it. Surely you can use that as the hook to draw new readers in, right? Well, there's just one teeny tiny, eensy teensy little bitty problem with that particular strategy, which is that the premise of Arcane, and this is the pillar of the show's world building, it is the most important and crucial detail about how the world of Arcane works. The premise of Arcane is that magic is rare. And in fact, not only is it rare, it is so mysterious, obscure, and feared that mages might as well be legendary cryptids. Throughout the entire show of Arcane, nobody in Piltover, nobody in Zaun, and nobody from any of the outside regions ever uses magic. There are no wizards, no witches, no warlocks, no scholarly archmaguses, no $2 hedge mages casting simple fireworks cantrips on the street corner for a pittance. There is no magic in Piltover and Zaun, and that is why Hextech is such a big deal. Jace and Victor's genius masterstroke is to harness the forces of the arcane not through sorcery, which is accessible to basically no one, but through technology, which can be accessible to everyone. And the entire plot of Arcane turns upon this technological revolution being something special, something which simply is not otherwise achievable. Which, you know, if everyday ordinary people have general access to magic, well, it would be otherwise achievable, and it wouldn't be revolutionary, and there wouldn't be a story. And the thing is, in Runeterra, in the main universe, magic is common as dirt. Magic is absolutely everywhere. Every third person gets magic rainbows farting out of their assholes when they sneeze. Magic is the foundation of the world. It is as normal and abundant as the air you breathe. Mages in the main universe are still a minority of people, but magic itself is endemic. It is everywhere, and outside of extremely powerful and esoteric disciplines like Zillion's time magic, everyone has experience with it, and there's a solid chance that any given person knows a mage or has met one. Mages and magic are normal even in Piltover and Zaun. Zeri, Seraphine, and Ezreal are all mages, and those cities are regularly visited by mages and magicians and wizards, traveling through the city to trade and exchange knowledge, and that knowledge gets archived in Piltover's vast libraries. Every single region in Runeterra depends on magic. In the Freljord, shamans and healers are the social glue that binds the tribes together. In Noxus, blood mages and battle sorcerers are the key to their battle strategies. In Ishtal, the entire social order is based around command of elemental magic disciplines. Bilgewater is protected by the magic of the Buru tribe, and the Shadow Isles are a post-apocalyptic magic wasteland. Shurima runs on Sundisk magic and has several indigenous traditions of magic, like stone weaving, which is what Talia does. Demasia's story as a region depends entirely on having a magical underclass to brutally repress, and Ionia, the First Lands, are literally the most magic-y magic lands that ever magicked magic anywhere. That's the premise of the entire region, which is why the canon of Arcane and the canon of Runeterra cannot functionally be reconciled. Arcane is premised on magic being extremely rare and inaccessible, and Runeterra is premised on literally exactly the opposite. So, if you want Arcane to be canon to the main universe of League of Legends, you have to retcon it. You have to say, actually, we were just kidding when we said that Hextech is the only way for normal people to access magic. There's been thousands of mages everywhere in the show the whole time. Jason Victor just didn't notice them. And that's why Victor nearly killed himself and killed Sky while struggling with the rune script on the Hex Core, because instead of talking to someone who knows magic, like a wizard or something, like even one time during his research, he just went ahead and messed with it because he's an irresponsible, ignorant moron, I guess. And by similar logic, Silco used Shimmer instead of magic to start his revolution because using magic would be unsportsmanlike in the war against Piltover. Like, seriously, the crime boss revolutionary serial killer didn't want to have a wizard on hand to help him with all of the crime that he was doing. These narrative problems compound if you try to integrate these two universes, and they are going to compound fast. On the other hand, if you wanted to retcon things the other way, if you wanted the main universe of League of Legends to become canon to Arcane, then you have to retcon all of it. Every single region and basically every single magical champion would have to be fundamentally rewritten, and several champions quite literally could not exist. Take Sylas, for example. The entire premise of Sylas as a character is that as a child, he was taken by the Mage Seekers and used as a human magic detector to arrest and oppress his fellow mages, of which there are many. And now he acts as a revolutionary leader, organizing and galvanizing the magical underclass of Demacia into violent resistance. If Arcane and its world state becomes the source of canon, then Sylas can't exist, because there wouldn't be enough mages to constitute a magical underclass, therefore there would be no need for the Mage Seekers, and therefore there would be no one to act as a revolutionary leader for. It's a similar problem also for Galio. He was created as a weapon of war specifically in response to the fact that magic is so endemic on the battlefield that a giant magic-absorbing golem was useful. If mages and magic are not normal, then you can't have Sylas, and there would be no reason to ever make Galio. Similarly, the Yordles wouldn't really work in an Arcane universe. In the main canon, they are magical fairy creatures from a magical subdimension who can casually, magically dimension travel, and you can't have that in Arcane. It raises too many questions. So all of Bandle City has to be completely retconned from the ground up, and you have to entirely remove and remake the magical power sets of champions like Veigar, Vex, Kennen, and Lulu. In short, trying to unify the universes of League of Legends and Arcane into one canon, no matter which direction you try to do it, comes with 10,000 narrative problems, all of which would have to be resolved in order to successfully complete a retcon. And that's just trying to make Arcane and League of Legends work together. If we bring Legends of Runeterra into this, it gets even worse, because Mage. Okay, I think you get the point by now. Legends of Runeterra has done greater and more expressive and interesting world building for the world of Runeterra than anything else Riot has ever done. And one of the ways that it did that was by showing us how magic is integrated into every part of life in this magical fantasy world. In order to make Arcane canon, you would have to kill Legends of Runeterra. Everything it has ever done would have to simply be undone. Now, at this point, you might be thinking that I am being too fatalistic and negative. Even if it's a big challenge to rewrite the canon, surely it can't be impossible. And okay, I will concede that even if I believe very strongly that these two conceptions of Runeterra are simply too opposite, too disparate to be reconciled, I'm not a top-level professional games writer. Maybe it is possible. Maybe a group of talented, passionate creatives with full institutional support from one of the most successful game companies in the world could find a way to make it work. Maybe if Riot commits, if Riot puts its resources behind it, if Riot gives its writers the time and the space and the budget that they need, maybe it could be done. Which is why I opened this video by telling you the story of the 2014 still incompleted retcon. Because what I want you to understand is that for the entirety of Riot Games' history, it has never demonstrated either the capacity or the willingness to institutionally support its writers with time, creative control, and resources. And let me tell you what I predict. Let me tell you what I think is going to happen. I think Riot are going to start making the One Runeterra universe. I think they're going to sink a ton of work into it and publish a bunch of stories and products, and creative people at the company will put their heart and soul into trying to make something great out of a flawed project. And then, when the executives get bored, or a key stakeholder leaves, or some other group of passionate creatives at the company get something new and exciting and shiny off the ground, One Runeterra will crawl to a halt. They won't announce that they've abandoned the project, because even internally they won't want to recognize that it's been abandoned, but as their big shiny retcon fails to produce the exciting revolutionary reinvigoration of the franchise that they want, as it fails to generate headlines and hype, and as the other departments inside Riot start siphoning away money and staff and attention and publishing priority, it will die. It will die quietly, and what we out here will be left with is dozens of new unresolved storylines, dangling plot hooks, and character arcs that go nowhere. And instead of having one big, shiny, unified narrative universe for the League of Legends IP, One Runeterra will be just another mess for future writers to spend 10 years trying and failing to clean up. So, in summary, the narrative universes of Arcane and the main League of Legends canon are fundamentally incompatible. In order to make one of them canon with the other, one or both of them will have to be fundamentally retconned to their fundamental detriment. If Riot undertakes this project and tries to make it work, its history suggests very strongly that it simply is not a company that has the capacity and the competences to pull that kind of thing off. They tried a big retcon 10 years ago, and they still haven't managed to finish cleaning up after it. Every big narrative project they've gotten off the ground in the past 10 years has inevitably crashed and burned when Riot's management mismanages it. Jace in the main universe is an arrogant, self-centered, and antisocial genius inventor who thinks everyone else is intellectually beneath him, and Victor is a reclusive, machine-obsessed transhumanist who considers free will an obstacle to scientific progress. In the main universe, Vi is a cheerful police enforcer, half of whose voice lines are about how much she thinks it's fun to violently assault her suspects. Jinx is a cackling, manic clown princess of crime who mostly just thinks explosions are fun, and Heimerdinger is the world's biggest Hextech nerd. Like, he loves Hextech so much, he built a battle dinosaur out of it. Arcane took those characters and changed them, fundamentally and with total freedom, until the characters fit the story that they wanted to tell. That is why it is so good. Not because it uses League of Legends champions, but because it effectively doesn't. These characters aren't the champions, and if they were, the story wouldn't work. Arcane was not successful because it is a League of Legends IP, it was successful very much in spite of it. So retconning the League of Legends universe to fit Arcane is like building a really nice chair out of wood and then looking at the forest and saying, wouldn't it be so much better if all those trees were shaped like chairs? The quality of the chair didn't come from the shape of the tree, it came from the craft of the woodworking. The quality of Arcane didn't come from League of Legends, it came from the craft of the adaptation. Trying to turn all of League of Legends into the shape of Arcane doesn't improve the quality of the material, it just makes every future adaptation harder to make and every future story harder to tell. If you want to tell the story of Talia and Kaisa trekking across Shurima to find a safe home for their tribe, that story doesn't really benefit from having its world-building forced to conform with the rules of Arcane. Yasuo's wandering Ronin looking for absolution storyline doesn't get any better if you force it to abide by limitations invented to tell a story about steampunk class disparity and family tragedy. Neither does Misfortune's pirate revenge quest slowly turning into a political horror story about the corruption of power, or Shen and Zed's melodramatic wuxia sibling drama. Arcane got to be as great as it is because it ignored canon. It ignored every established rule of the League of Legends universe to invent something for itself that supported its own creative ambitions. And if you want another Arcane, another adaptation on that level, you have to give it that same freedom. Trying to fit everything into one cohesive canon is wiki brain. It is CinemaSins poisoning. It's an approach to narrative which treats world building and lore as a checklist of facts to be followed, rather than a creative tool for telling a good story. I have a feeling people might ask this in the comments, and it is a fair question. I've been complaining so much about Riot's plans, so what do I think they should do instead? And that's a hard answer to give because, well, this shit is complicated. For all that I give Riot crap for their systemic mishandling of their story universe, I don't want anyone to come away from this video thinking that properly managing a story universe of that size is easy. No one person could ever possibly hope to come up with the one silver bullet, the one perfect plan that fixes all problems. This kind of creative work simply doesn't work that way. It's a collaborative process that takes dozens or hundreds of people, and even when it's working well, it takes a ton of labor and a lot of time. Putting me in charge of it would probably make everything worse, not better, because I am an art critic, not a project manager, and those are not interchangeable skill sets. Having said all of that, with the caveats in mind, I will give a suggestion. Because I don't think the wheel needs to be reinvented here. There are models for handling big IPs with expansive universes, and I don't see why they couldn't work for League of Legends as well. The most obvious one, I think, is the old Star Wars expanded universe model. Back in the day, before Disney bought it and turned everything into streaming shows, Star Wars ran on a split model of soft and hard canon. The movies were hard canon. Everything that happened in them was immutable and set in stone, the bedrock of the franchise. And surrounding all of that was the soft canon, the expanded universe, where writers and artists were allowed to pretty much run wild as they pleased, so long as nothing they made interfered with the main canon, and on the understanding that if a work in the main canon contradicted anything they made, it would be immediately considered non-canon and non-present in the official timeline. Now, the expanded universe model was not without its problems, both creative and administrative, but it was also an incredibly active and fertile creative space with an incredibly deep library of storylines and characters to engage with, and expanded universe content eventually went on to spawn a fandom all of its own. The Old Republic setting, for example, is an expanded universe idea, and it got adapted into some seriously beloved RPGs by BioWare and Obsidian, and that is the strength of this approach to canon and narrative. It creates spaces for new fans to find and engage with the world outside of whatever the flagship product is. You could become a Star Wars fan by playing the video games, reading the novels or comics, or watching TV shows like the Clone Wars without ever having to touch any of the original movies. And I think we can all agree that that is a feature which League of Legends needs very, very badly, because the MOBA is toxic as hell. It is a hardcore competitive game where even the casual scene has a huge mechanical and cultural barrier to entry, and odds are pretty good that you'll get called a slur 14 times before you can even manage to pick a main. And even then, even if you go through all of that, your only exposure to the characters and their stories is going to be short voice line barks, splash arts, and postage stamp-sized character models running around on the screen. It is a terrible on-ramp to the League of Legends universe. It always has been, and it needs to be decentered. So, what would an expanded universe model look like for League of Legends? Well, first of all, it doesn't make Arcane part of the main canon. Arcane instead becomes its own expanded universe, where the show is the central hard canon, and around that, you create a bunch of soft canon media exploring that version of Runeterra. You make comics, webcomics, novels, podcasts. Hell, you sponsor a miniseries of Critical Role playing a tabletop game set in the Arcane universe. Arcane fans are first and foremost fans of Arcane, not League of Legends. They want more of that, so give it to them. Parallel to that, you develop or continue to develop the main League of Legends universe. Create some kind of flagship product for it, something that can serve as the hard canon core. My suggestion would be the upcoming MMO, which, while it is still far away, is the kind of product that can carry a narrative universe, and then you license out all of the soft canon Games Workshop style. Allow indie studios to make games set in Runeterra. Let writers write novels there. Commission a webcomic. Produce a dramatic podcast. Create DLC with Power Wash Simulator. Support an official Demacia vs. Noxus Total Conversion mod for Crusader Kings. Do literally anything that puts Runeterra in front of more audiences in more diverse forms. Resurrect Riot Forge. Make the MOBA and the mobile game as optional to League of Legends fandom as the movies are to Star Wars. The main thing is that all of this takes time. It takes consistent effort, and the returns on those investments are going to be slow. People aren't going to flock to any of this just because it has the League of Legends label on it, because that label is associated with the MOBA, which is toxic. The project is to create a new association. Games Workshop had managed to do this for 40K, which is no longer associated at all primarily with the tabletop game, and they have built an incredibly powerful fandom through that reassociation. League should try to do the same thing. This is something that has to be built over years and years and years, probably burning quite a lot of money to get it off the ground, which Riot should be comfortable with because that's how they built their esports scene. Although, of course, on the other hand, the interest rates have risen above zero in the meantime, so maybe the vultures that run their executive class don't have the minimum of backbone required to take that kind of risk anymore. I will die on the hill that League of Legends actually has amazing story and amazing characters, and the primary impediment to the mainstream success of those characters has always been chronic mismanagement at Riot Games Incorporated. I don't imagine that any of my suggestions here are necessarily actionable. Doing any of what I've suggested is complicated as hell, and I suspect a major part of the reason why Riot reached for the retcon is because that's the only move they think they have the capacity to execute. And frankly, they might be right about that. They might not actually have any other option, even though the one they're reaching for is, in my opinion, really bad. In conclusion, then, the first point that I wanted to make in this video is that the canon of Arcane and the canon of Runeterra cannot be unified without making serious compromises to either or both of the universes. My second point is that there are models out there, there are approaches to handling the kind of disparate canon that Riot is stuck with. Star Wars does it, Marvel and DC do it, Games Workshop does it, and there's no reason why adapting a similar model for Runeterra couldn't work as well. And finally, my third point is that what I think Arcane proves is that Runeterra is an incredibly potent source for adaptation. And that potential is going to get lost if you try to streamline all of that wonderful, diverse universe into fitting the mold of your one big success so far. A lot of creative people have sunk a lot of hours and a lot of passion into making the Runeterra universe what it is, and I think that Riot Games should have a lot more faith in what those people have built. Anyway, that's probably enough of that. Again, I really will die on the hill that League of Legends is host to a lot of great stories which deserve to be read and seen more broadly, and the one Runeterra project trying to make Arcane canon, to me, just seems like a complete overreaction to a single successful project. Anyway, self-promotion time. This channel is funded by viewers like you on Patreon. Especially with the brain turbulence that I've been going through these past 6 months, I really appreciate the steady, reliable income I get from people on Patreon. It's genuinely a boon to my stability and mental health, so thank you all very much for that. If you want to help support the work that I do here, you can sign up for a monthly donation or a yearly one with a discount, and there are some perks available for you in return. For example, at $10 and above, I will give you character design feedback every month, as best I can, on any character that you want, and all supporters get to join the extra super special secret rooms on the Discord, which admittedly are mostly full of the same kinds of shitposting and socializing as all the other rooms on the Discord, but these ones are special because I put a label on them that said so. As ever, though, I don't want any money that you need for yourself, and anytime you need to cancel a pledge, please don't hesitate to do that. Take care of yourself first. As for other self-promotion, well, I have a Let's Play channel where, I play video games on there, and I've just played through the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission DLC, which is the Yuffie side story thing to get ready for Rebirth, which is coming soon, and you best believe I am going to be playing Rebirth the moment it drops. I'm going to be doing the playing of that game over on Twitch, but the VODs of that will be archived on the Let's Play channel, so if you want to see that, hey, go over to those places and subscribe. Also, hey, do you like anime? Or commentary on things? Well, head on over to youtube.com/3bsguyan, because that is my new reaction/commentary channel. I've been watching Dungeon Meshi on there, a show whose animation is driving me moderately feral, because holy some of those episodes. And I've also been watching Freerun and Solo Leveling. So if you want to watch some anime along with me, come on over there. And I also post reaction videos over there now to game trailers and stuff. So like the Project L teasers that recently got put up, or 2XKO, they changed the title. That is going to be over on that channel. But that's enough self-promotion. Let's play the emoji game. If you've watched the entire video all the way through to this point, put a hammer or some kind of tool emoji in your comment and I will read it and I will put a little heart on it. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. Remember to be kind to one another, have solidarity with those who are struggling, and may the tides of history wash gently over us all.